Welcome to The Explainer. So today we're going to do something, well, incredibly powerful. Take a quick look over at your nightstand right now. If you're anything like me, you've probably got this towering, aspirational pile of to-be-read books that are basically just sitting there, generating a vague, lingering sense of guilt. Right? We've all been there. Well, we're taking the core transformative insights from 10 of those incredibly dense, life-altering books and distilling the whole shebang down into a single, cohesive mental upgrade. If you love learning but want to cut straight to the actionable frameworks that actually shift how you navigate the world, you are in the perfect place. We're tuning out the noise, going straight for the signal, and giving your brain the ultimate software patch. Okay, let's dive into this roadmap. 1. The trap of fake learning. 2. Mastering how you decide. 3. Rethinking purpose and productivity. 4. Navigating the social world. And 5. Integrating mind, body, spirit. So let's kick things off with Module 1, the trap of fake learning. I want you to think about your own habits for a second. Think about how much information you consume on a weekly basis, and ask yourself honestly, how much of it actually changes you? This is what we call the reading illusion. The source material points out a pretty harsh reality about human memory. Most books, articles, and lectures, they just inform you without actually transforming you. You read a brilliant nonfiction book, you're nodding along, you tell a friend it was an absolute masterpiece, and you get this wonderful temporary dopamine hit of feeling incredibly smart. But thanks to what psychologists call the forgetting curve, without active repetition, 3 months later, you've forgotten like 90% of it. And more importantly, you're operating exactly the same way you did before you opened page 1. Gathering knowledge is simply not the same as changing your life. So our ultimate goal with this explainer is an operating system upgrade. We're moving entirely beyond mere information here. The ideas we're unpacking today aren't meant to just live in your memory banks as fun trivia at a dinner party. They are actionable frameworks designed to aggressively rewire how you process data, how you evaluate risks, and how you fundamentally move through the world, starting literally the minute this is over. Module 2, Mastering How You Decide. To upgrade the mind's core processing unit, we turn to decision strategist Annie Duke. She coined a concept called resulting, and it is a massive cognitive error that you, me, and everyone else makes every single day. Resulting is when you judge your decisions entirely by what happened afterward. Think about making a heavily researched, highly calculated investment that completely tanks due to a totally unpredictable market crash. You immediately beat yourself up, right? You think it was a terrible decision. Conversely, if you throw some money at a random cryptocurrency on a whim and it skyrockets, suddenly you think you're a financial genius. This hindsight pivot completely ignores the massive role of luck, timing, and pure randomness in the real world. A good outcome doesn't automatically equal a good decision, and a bad outcome doesn't mean you made a mistake. You have to evaluate your choices based on the quality of the information and the process you used at the exact moment you made them, completely divorced from the end result. Building on the mechanics of the mind, Nobel laureate Daniel Kahneman reveals that our brain operates using two very different systems. System 1 is fast, intuitive, and automatic. Think of it as an overconfident intern. It runs the show about 95% of the time, making snap judgments just to keep you moving. System 2 is your slow, deliberate, analytical, and highly metabolically expensive brain. Think of System 2 as a lazy middle manager. Now here is the fatal flaw in our biology. System 1 relies on mental shortcuts and is highly biased, yet it delivers its answers to System 2 with absolute, unwavering confidence. And because System 2 is a lazy manager that just wants to conserve energy, it usually blindly rubber stamps whatever paperwork the overconfident intern hands it. Crazy, right? So, the crucial point is stopping to ask yourself, am I really sure about this because I've actually thought it through? Or am I sure simply because it feels easy? Your feeling of certainty is almost never evidence of accuracy. Confidence is often just a signal of cognitive fluency, meaning a thought was just really easy for your brain to produce. For example, behavioral science shows we're actually more likely to believe a phrase is factual simply because it rhymes. Birds of a feather flock together feels incredibly true to our lazy System 2 just because it sounds pleasant, not because of empirical data. You absolutely have to start treating your strongest, easiest, most effortless intuitions with the utmost suspicion. Moving on to Module 3, Rethinking Purpose and Productivity. Charting Human Happiness reveals this totally fascinating matrix engineered by psychologist Mihaly Csikszentmihalyi. We so often chase happiness like it's a static destination. A specific job title, a corner office, or a certain number sitting in a bank account.
But decades of research show true fulfillment is actually a state of deep absorption. Flow happens exactly when your high skill level perfectly matches a high challenge. Think of a time you were writing code or maybe playing a musical instrument or a competitive sport, and you suddenly looked up and realized 3 hours had completely vanished. That is flow. If the challenge is too high, you get intensely anxious. If your skill is way too high, you get incredibly bored. Sustainable happiness isn't about resting on a beach. It's engineered by purposefully structuring your life around activities that constantly, relentlessly push the very edge of your capability.
So, if flow is the engine, where exactly do we point the car? Sir Ken Robinson calls that specific destination the element. It's the exact intersection where your natural aptitude meets your personal passion. But here's the secret that trips up so many people. You almost never find this intersection through quiet introspection alone. Actually, scratch that, you never find it that way. You aren't going to find your life's work just by journaling in a dark room. You find it through real-world exposure. You have to physically collide with the world by trying new things, failing spectacularly at things, and paying really close attention to those specific moments when time just disappears for you. Which brings us seamlessly to Eric Ries and the Lean Startup methodology. The absolute fastest path to something great is exposing your imperfect thing to reality as early as possible. Perfectionism is a dangerous fallacy entirely disguised as preparation. We often spend months or even years perfecting a project, a piece of art, or a business idea in total isolation, only for the world to just kind of shrug when we finally launch it. Why? Well, because we built the perfect version of something nobody actually wanted. You have to create a minimum viable product. Instead of spending a year building a complex app, build a one-page website in a day to see if anyone even clicks the button. Ship your work ugly. Ship it scared. Let reality, not your own untested, isolated assumptions, be your true editor. All right, Module 4, Navigating the Social World. To upgrade how we process disagreement, we have to look at this massive paradigm shift from social psychologist Jonathan Haidt. And this brilliantly illustrates a totally different way to view human debates. You likely think you use logic and reason to form your beliefs, right? Well, you don't. You form beliefs through fast emotional intuition, and then you employ reason to justify those beliefs after the fact. Reason is not the driver, it's the press secretary. When you argue with someone at a dinner party or on the internet, you are literally just watching two press secretaries fiercely and creatively defend the emotional intuitions their drivers already made long before the conversation even started. To truly understand the driver, you have to look at Haidt's 6 moral foundations: care, fairness, liberty, loyalty, authority, and sanctity. Think of these exactly like taste buds for moral judgment. The source material notes that different groups intuitively weigh these taste buds differently. For example, studies show liberals tend to weigh care and fairness very heavily, treating them as the most crucial ingredients for a good society. Meanwhile, conservatives tend to weigh all 6 foundations more equally, placing a higher value on things like loyalty to the in-group and respecting authority and tradition than their liberal counterparts do. And look, neither configuration is inherently wrong or broken. They are just genuinely different moral palettes. Understanding that the person you disagree with isn't necessarily evil or stupid, but is simply operating on a different combination of the exact same moral ingredients, well, that shifts you from instant dismissal to profound wisdom. But listen, even when you completely understand these different moral palettes, you're still inevitably going to encounter friction and judgment. Psychologist Alfred Adler states that all human problems are ultimately interpersonal relationship problems. His extremely liberating solution: the separation of tasks. Your task is to live according to your values, pursue your goals, and act with integrity. Other people's task is to have an opinion about it. Their judgment is their task, not yours. You cannot cross into their lane. True, unapologetic freedom to be authentic demands the courage to be disliked by some people. You simply cannot be free and universally approved of at the exact same time. Module 5, Integrating Mind, Body, and Spirit. 35,000. Let that number hang in the air for just a second. 35,000. That is the staggering number of decisions the average person makes every single day. Neuroscientist Daniel Levitin points out that your brain has a highly finite, entirely measurable daily processing budget. It doesn't have separate energy tanks for trivial decisions and important ones. Every single choice, what to wear, what to eat for breakfast, wondering where your keys are, it all drains the exact same prefrontal cortex bandwidth you desperately need for your most important, creative, high-leverage work. This is exactly why visionaries like Steve Jobs were famous for wearing the exact same outfit every single day. They were rigorously protecting their cognitive budget. The ultimate fix for this invisible cognitive drain is to completely externalize your mental clutter. Psychologists call this the Zeigarnik effect. It's the tendency of the brain to fixate on uncompleted tasks. Every piece of trivial information or open mental loop you try to manually keep in your head is actively taxing your working memory and literally lowering your available IQ for the day. No way, right? But it's true. You absolutely must get routines, schedules, and minor decisions out of your head and into an external system, like a calendar or a notebook, so you can save that precious brain bandwidth for what actually moves the needle. And how does this connect to our physical biology? 20,000. That is roughly how many breaths you take in a given day. Journalist James Nestor highlights some deeply fascinating Stanford research where participants were physically forced to breathe exclusively through their mouths. Within days, their blood pressure spiked, their sleep quality collapsed, and their cognitive performance rapidly declined. Merely pulling the plugs and switching back to nasal breathing reversed every single negative metric almost immediately. Nasal breathing isn't just a fun alternative. It physically filters air, dilates blood vessels, and actively engages your body's parasympathetic nervous system to keep you calm. You can initiate this biological upgrade right now, exactly as you're listening to this. Close your mouth, breathe gently through your nose. Inhale for a count of 5 seconds, and then intentionally extend the exhale to 7 seconds. Doing this while you're working at your desk, driving in traffic, or stepping into a stressful meeting, it is the single most direct, immediate lever you have for instantly altering your nervous system and taking total control of your emotional state. So, we've upgraded the mind and the body, and now we anchor it all with the spirit. This ancient wisdom from the Bhagavad Gita makes every other modern framework we've discussed today function perfectly. You have the right to your work, but never to the fruit of the work. In a modern context, this means you have the right to pour your absolute heart into a massive corporate presentation or to launch a brand new creative project. You control the process, the effort, and the integrity of your actions, but you do not control the outcome, the promotion, the algorithm, or the applause. If you attach your identity and your core self-worth to uncontrollable results, you're eventually going to burn out or grow bitter. Dedicating yourself fully and passionately to the work itself, while completely and utterly detaching from the result, that is the ultimate freedom. So, I leave you with this final, provocative thought to carry with you today. Which part of your mental operating system are you going to upgrade first? Are you going to finally start evaluating your big decisions by the process instead of the lucky outcome? Are you going to be brave enough to ship your imperfect project to reality? Or are you simply going to take a long, deep breath through your nose and let go of the results you can't control? The tools are all laid out right in front of you. It's time to put them to work. Thanks for joining me on this explainer, and I'll catch you next time.